All right, all right, all right. Let's see if we don't get any interruptions, any interception in this live. If we don't, we'll probably go for an hour or even less. We want to talk about failed relationships. This is something that I feel that as someone who is in the spirituality field, I find myself coming across this quite a lot. And of course, as a human being that has lived in this world, this is something that I have dealt with myself on a personal level, failed relationships. And today, on this particular topic, we are going to focus on who's to blame, because I think this is something that um, we do sometimes talk about, on social media and everything. But even when we talk about it, I don't know, it feels to me that the angles that we are coming from majority of the time, um, it's from sort of like our own personal, and I suppose, even here it's still my own personal perspective. But I think that a twist that I'm adding here is the spiritual one, is the spiritual element to this whole mix. So, who is to blame? Because I've come across a few, one or two videos on social media where people will be saying things like, "Oh, it's the woman, it's the woman's fault," and usually it will be men that will be saying this, to say it's women are to be blamed for failures in relationships, and if the fathers of children are absent, it's the woman's fault because she has a stinking attitude, sometimes they will say. And that's the thing that would chase the men away. It would make the men not even want to look after his own child, and a whole lot of things like that. So, and sometimes there are women who agree with this kind of sentiments, and then there are other situations where you find that, okay, women are of course blaming men, to say, but men have done all these horrible things in relationships. And they'll also be making reference to statistics that show that, let's face it, a whole lot of challenges in relationships have to do with men, and majority of the time it has to do with the level of violence and aggression that men institute towards women or commit towards women. And so for that reason, that would be why they believe that men are to be blamed for failures in relationships. And of course, there's the part of cheating, and majority of the time you find that men do that, even though lately we are coming across a whole lot of situations where women are found to be cheating as well. It's almost as if they are now beginning to compete with men, but statistically speaking, men are the ones that are leading where that is concerned as well, statistically speaking. So, but now I want to add a different element to this whole mix, which is the spiritual one. And as I said, with that being the case, uh, I want to say that I understand that, we all come from different spiritual backgrounds, and we all have our own different spiritual views. So this is my own spiritual view. This is my own spiritual perspective. And I do believe it's an objective one. But of course, this is my take as an individual. And from a spiritual perspective, my take, my assessment is that men in relationships are leaders. And I understand very well that, this is something that a lot of people might not agree with. A lot of people might feel that, in a relationship, um, we are both leaders in the relationship, as the male and the female. People might feel that, okay, um, maybe, I don't know, maybe even the woman is the leader in a relationship and not necessarily a man, and all of that. But as far as I have learned, with the spiritual journey that I have been on, definitely the masculine energy is the energy of leadership. The masculine energy, the way that is designed, it's designed to lead, it's designed to move forward, it's designed to be that everything about how this energy has been designed says leadership, you understand. Whereas the energy of the divine feminine, which is the energy of the woman, is the energy of receptivity, passivity. And of course, this does not necessarily mean that you don't fulfill or occupy roles of leadership, or you don't take, any action that is associated with leadership. This does not mean that that's how it's supposed to be. No, you can still do it, all of those things, but you still are operating from that perspective of the divine feminine energy, the energy of receptivity and passivity, especially when it comes to how you are engaging with your divine counterpart, your partner, your romantic partner, your lover, your husband, your boyfriend. And so, but when it comes to the energy of a man, it's that energy that is, outgoing, forward going. It's the energy, for example, if you are a woman, the energy of the man is the energy that is coming towards you. It's the energy that is covering you. It's the energy that is protecting you. It is the energy that is also guiding and leading you to a certain extent, especially when it comes to the things and the affairs of this world. You understand? It's the energy that is also leading you, even with regards to the relationship itself. So, this is what that energy of the divine masculine is about. So, why is it important for me to lay this foundation? It's because when it comes to understanding who it is that we need to put responsibility on when it comes to the failure of a relationship, we need to understand why it is that we are, doing that. Why is it that we are putting responsibility on this specific person instead of putting responsibility on any other person? And so the reason why we place that responsibility on him, we place the responsibility of the failure of a relationship on a man. And from a spiritual perspective, that's how it is. And as far as I understand, and as far as I have been taught, it's not even just a matter of, okay, this is an opinion, but this is something that is a spiritual reality. When a relationship fails, the spiritual forces of life, they put this on the shoulders of a man. They don't put it on the shoulders of a woman. They put a failure of a relationship on the shoulders of a man. And the reason for that is because the man is the one who's the leader. From the beginning up until the end of a relationship, the man never ever changes his role. Even if he himself decides to change the roles and decide to occupy the role of the divine feminine, whatever it is that he does, even if he says, no, I'm not the leader or anything like that, it does not matter. It is a spiritual thing. It is there by default. From a spiritual perspective, the role of a man as a leader is one that is there by default. As soon as you are born a man, you are born a leader. That's just how it is, especially within the context of a relationship. When you are born a man, you are born a leader. You are born to lead in a relationship. That's just how it is. So that is a massive responsibility that you are born with. And from get go, what a man needs in his life, like from childhood and everything, they need to be raised by people that understand this role and responsibility that this male child is carrying upon his shoulders. So they need to train him the right way in terms of what it means to be a leader in a relationship. And so the easy way to make, to help us understand this concept is by understanding the role of a leader, or mentorship, or whatever it is that this thing is. There's something that certain people do that are in the business world, when they raise their children to be able to inherit their businesses. There's a way that they operate where from get-go they'll be raising this child in such a way where he understands, or he or she understands, the level of responsibility that is upon their shoulders with regards to this business that they're going to one day inherit. or one day lead. And so the same thing needs to happen even with the male child. So going back to the example of a business, in a business, when a business fails, you are not going to blame the people in the business, the employees, the staff. You're not even going to blame the customers. Even if there's a significant part that these people would have played in that whole situation, you are not going to blame those people. When you are reporting to the shareholders and the board and everything and telling them that the business has failed, they don't want to hear that, no, you know what, the assistant manager messed up here and there. They don't want to hear that that staff member stole this money here and there. They don't want to hear that this client has ruined our reputation and so on and so forth. They are not interested in that. What they are interested in is understanding the role that you have played in this situation, and also how it is that they can hold you accountable and responsible for this mess that has occurred. Because they are not putting their trust in the assistant manager. They are not putting their trust in the customer. They are not putting their trust in anyone else, the staff member or anyone in that business. They are putting their trust in you when they invest in the business. Therefore, the person that ought to take responsibility for the failure of the business is you, as the person that is in charge of it. The same applies in a relationship as well. From a spiritual perspective, the invisible forces of life, God, source, whatever it is that you want to call them, they place responsibility, they invest in you as a man. They invest in you to make the relationship work. It's you that they are looking to make a relationship work. And so I understand that the society that we are living in has not really, taught us these things. And as a result, there are a lot of men, and not only have they taught us these things, have they not taught us these things, but they have not equipped men, in this regard. And so a lot of men enter into the space of relationships not knowing their role, not knowing what exactly is it that they're supposed to do. Majority of the time, it's a whole lot of trial and error. And it's like, oh, if it fails, whatever. But what they don't understand is that even if they don't know, even if they don't understand, even if it's not intentional, every failure in that relationship, the guys are placing it on their shoulders. It is karma that they're actually accumulating. This is quite unfortunate. And this is one of the reasons why, despite the fact that the world that we are living in, let's face it, like, men are in charge and men are, leading everything and all of that, and they've got all these advantages and everything. Despite all of that, they are still suffering. They are more, physically agile than women. They've got all these advantages over women in this particular realm, and yet they are suffering. They are struggling. Why is that the case? It's because of this karma. And we as a society are doing ourselves a disservice by raising men that are not equipped to occupy their roles as leaders within a relationship context, especially. So that whole thing of, no, you're just going to go into a relationship, trial and error, let's see what happens, and then if it fails, then yeah, whatever, life goes on. That's not how it works in the spirit realm. In the physical realm, it's like, oh yeah, whatever, no one is going to bother too much about that. People are just going to move on. But in the spirit realm, that's not how it goes. That's not how the invisible forces take it. So you enter into a relationship. Let me just give you an example. So you will, enter into a relationship with someone. You don't know this person. You haven't, gotten to know them and gotten to test compatibility or anything like that. And somehow, the relationship ends up failing. And maybe it turns out that this person is actually a horrible person that you are in a relationship with. Let's say you are a man, right? But then this woman that you're in a relationship with turns out to be a narcissist or a psychopath or some crazy person. And then somehow you have to leave, because of course you can't stay in a relationship with a very toxic person. Even then still, the guides will hold you accountable. And the guides are not like, oh no, we are angry at you, we hate you, we are punishing you, and we want to destroy your life. That's not how the guides operate. The guides, how they operate, they will say, we understand your situation, we understand your predicament, we understand that you didn't know what you didn't know. They understand all of those things. And even yet still, when it comes to the consequences spiritually of that decision that you have made, we are still going to be placing it upon you, because you are the man, you are the leader. You understand? So you have brought it upon us to invest in you as the leader in this particular relationship, which we could pretty much, compare to an organization. We have invested upon you to be in this relationship, to lead this situation here. And because you have failed, this is the spiritual action that we are going to be taking against you. And it's not because we hate you or anything like that. These are spiritual laws. When you fail in a relationship as a man, there is karma that you accumulate for that reason. In the same way that there are negative things that happen to the woman as well when they are in a relationship and it fails. And that's one of the reasons why you as a man get your karma. It's because from a spiritual perspective, within a relationship context, the woman is very, very vulnerable. And so, whatever it is that happens to her within the context, especially any negative thing that happens to her within the context of that relationship, the guides will always put it on the shoulders of the man. You understand? Because the man is the one. Remember, just like a business, literally, just like how it is in a business, in an organization. Whatever it is that happens to the people that are part of that organization, it is always on the shoulders of the leadership of that organization. It is always on the shoulders of the business owner, the CEO, and so on. You understand? So, the same way, if that relationship fails, it will always be on your head as the man. Whatever happens, now that this woman has been exposed to shame because now they are no longer in a relationship, even if she is a mad woman, even if she is the most toxic of the toxicest of them all, the guys are still putting it upon you as the leader. You understand? And then why are the guys still putting it on you as the leader? Because you, as the leader, you are expected, and this is why we need to be teaching our children these things from a very, very early age. You don't just go in. You don't just go into things. You don't just jump into things. You prospect first. You assess the situation first. You do a little bit of research first before you jump into anything. Relationships are not a playground the way this world has taught us that relationships are. That is a spiritual error. Relationships are not a playground. And yes, people will always say, oh, but you women, you should say no, you should say this, you should say that, and everything. Okay, fine. That's all good and well. But at the end of the day, the spiritual forces will always hold you as the man responsible for whatever it is that happens in that relationship. So before you enter into a relationship, you have to know, firstly, you have to be very clear about who you are. And as a man, you have to be very, very clear about who you are and what is it that you want. As long as you are not clear about who you are and what is it that you want in life, what is it that you are doing here? What is it that you are all about? What type of a person and what type of people is it that would be ideal for you? As long as you are not clear about that, you have no business playing in the space of relationship, regardless of whatever sexual needs you might be having and you might be needing to fulfill. The guys are not interested in that. You cannot jump into a relationship just because you have sexual needs. You cannot jump into a relationship just because it so happened by some kind of a default. You have to be very, very conscious about the choice that you are making when you are entering into a relationship. You have to be very, very clear about this person that I'm bringing into my life. How are they? What is there any value that they're going to bring? What kind of value are they going to bring into my life? What kind of value am I going to bring into their lives? Is this going to work? How compatible are we? You have to be very, very clear about that. And this thing, as much as, yes, women still need to do the same thing as well. But this thing, once again, the responsibility from a spiritual perspective, the guides are placing it on the shoulders of the men. And this does not necessarily mean that, just because you as a man, you are you are so sure and convinced that that this woman is the right woman for you, then that means she doesn't have a say with regards to whether she wants to be with you or not. No, that's not what this means. It just means that you yourself have to be very clear about where you stand and what you are about. And then you go ahead and make that choice, make that decision. And when you make the decision, when you decide that you're going to pursue a woman, and by the time you get to that point where you're deciding you are pursuing this woman in a romantic context and you want to have a relationship with her, at least you want to have a certain amount of knowledge and understanding about her to take things to that serious level. Especially when it comes, I know now this is where, I'm going to lose a whole lot of you, and that's fine. But when you talk about the minute you enter into that space where you are sleeping with the woman, you have to know. Because once again, the minute you are sleeping with a woman, automatically from a spiritual perspective, it doesn't matter what religion or whatever it is that you believe in spiritually. When you sleep with a woman, from a spiritual perspective, you are automatically married to her. And this is how the guides see it. The person that you have slept with, the guides see you as being married to that person. So by the time you get to a point where you are sleeping with that person, that woman, you have to know it in your heart that this is someone that I actually want to spend the rest of my life with. Because until you are clear about that, you should not be playing in the space of sleeping with that person. So, because you do not want to create a situation where you have slept with that person and then you have decided, oh, you know what, this was a mistake and everything. The guys are going to come at you for that. Not because they hate you, but because divine justice has to be instituted. There are laws, certain spiritual laws that have been put in place that they are there. You don't even need to do anything to try and, instigate them or, cause them to happen, implement. No, they just happen by automatically. They are there. Just like how they talk about the law of gravity, whether that gravity thing is real or not. But it's like, you throw an apple, up in the air, it's going to come back down, isn't it? So in the same way, when you do certain things as a man, because here I'm really like talking to, as a man, you sleeping around, and just because emotionally there is no hang up for you and there's no hangover for you, the same way that there is for a woman, just because the society doesn't shame you for having a so-called body count, just because that's the case, don't think that from a spiritual perspective, there are no consequences for your failed so-called relationships or your hookups or your one-night stands or your friends with benefit or whatever it is that you want to call it. Don't think there are no consequences for that. The reason why men are suffering right now with a lot of things, in a lot of areas, men have a lot of challenges. The reason why that happens is because of these things. It's because of men sleeping around. So unlike with a woman, when you sleep with a man or you sleep around or you do whatever, society gets to see it and then they get to shame you and then you feel the immediate consequences of, whatever that decision that you made with regards to whatever relationship. It's easier, right, with a woman because everyone gets to see it and everything. Unlike with a woman, you as a man, you get to carry those consequences slightly differently. You will just find yourself in a situation where certain things out of the blue just go wrong and then just refusing to come right. You find yourself struggling to make certain things happen in your life, even though they're supposed to happen. You find that by the time you decide that, okay, now this is where I settle down, I'm tired of playing, I don't want to be a player no more, or whatever it is that people say, you find that somewhere, somehow, when you're supposed to now be enjoying this wonderful life that you're supposed to be enjoying, all of a sudden, certain things are not working for you. All of a sudden, your health has just gone crazy. Something will just go funny. And I'm not wishing this on anyone. I'm saying this is what I have observed. So there are certain things that we definitely should not really be playing around, honestly. And when it comes to people's lives, this is something that people need to be very careful about. And so, as a society, we need to make sure that when we are raising our boy children, we are understanding that we are raising leaders here. And because you are raising a leader, you want to make sure that you are raising someone that is going to be able to make proper choices, right choices. Someone who's not going to be doing that. Relationships are not a space to be doing that whole thing. Or I'm trying to figure things out. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to test things. Let's see how it goes. Blah, blah, blah. And I understand in this world, there are two kinds of people. There are God's children and there are the other children. You know, the Bible said, you know, from a Christian perspective, it doesn't matter what religion you are part of, but I'm just going to use, you know, the Bible here because this is the perfect place where this particular statement or scripture goes. You know, we've got goats and we've got sheep. You know, we've got the right seeds that have been planted by the sower, but we also have weeds, the tares. You know, so there are people of this world that can get away with some of these things. They can do these things, and maybe they are not as impacted or as affected, or it doesn't really matter to them, you know, what all of these things mean. And that's fine. It is what it is, you know. But as children of the true creator, that's not the space that you want to be playing in. And if you find yourself in that space, you definitely want to, you know, ask for forgiveness from the higher powers of life, your higher self, whatever it is that you call it, God, source, life, creator, creation, whatever it is that you call it. You want to ask for forgiveness. You want to ask for strength, courage, resources, whatever it is that is required to help you to be able to align to your true path as a man, how it is that I can be the kind of leader that I'm supposed to be. You know, people's lives are not something to be tampered with. So, therefore, when it comes to relationships, you should not be meddling there. And if you find yourself coming across loose women that are constantly throwing themselves at you, you still have a responsibility as a man. You cannot, oh, pardon me, you cannot say, oh no, they threw themselves at me and, you know, I just didn't know what to do and all of that. You still have a responsibility to know how to respond to such kind of situations. You still have a responsibility to practice and exercise self-control. Because why? You are a leader. You are a leader as a man. So you have that responsibility to decline things that are not good. You have the responsibility to protect women against horrible things that could potentially happen to them in this world, and to also protect them against you, protect them against yourself. And not only just protect them against yourself as well, but protect them against themselves also. You have a responsibility to protect women as a man. And one of the ways in which you demonstrate that responsibility is by not sleeping with them. You have a responsibility to not sleep with every woman that you are coming across as a man. Because when you are sleeping with them, you are defiling them. You are defiling them. As long as you are sleeping with someone that you have no intention of marrying and you have no intention of staying with them, or you still trying to figure them out, or whatever it is that could be going on there, you are defiling them, you are soiling them, you are degrading them. So this is something that the guides are not going to take lightly. A lot of men find themselves struggling. These days, we are dealing with situations where a lot of women find themselves as breadwinners in their families, in their, you know, settings, in their relationships. And you wonder, why is it that so many men are struggling financially? They're struggling to make ends meet. And even if they are working somewhere, somehow the woman seems to be the one that's making more money. What's going on here and everything? The guides will hit you where it hurts the most. And where it hurts the most with men is in their pocket. You understand? And you are wondering, why is it that, you know, God is allowing men to be in this kind of position where now they can't take care of their women and everything. They have not earned that responsibility. They have not earned that position. They have not earned that role. You understand? So one of the reasons why more and more women are becoming more and more financially, independent and more financially, blessed, if we should put it that way, is because they have found themselves in this position where they are having to play the role of both the man and the woman in children's life. So somehow, by divine justice, the guys had to intervene there. But unfortunately, when it comes to men, literally, because men, majority of the time, find themselves, because they haven't learned, and some of them, of course, they just have, they're just too broken. They have all these mental health issues. But because they have abdicated their responsibility when it comes to the leadership role that they are playing in life in general, because of that, the guides have stripped them of the ability to take care of themselves financially and to even take care of their families. And then you wonder, why is this happening? Why is this happening? It's because, what have you done? Look at what you've done in the past. Look at the trail of broken hearts that you have left behind. You didn't know, maybe, I don't know. Maybe some do it deliberately, do it intentionally. Some, it's, you just don't, you didn't know. You didn't know what you didn't know. And if that's the case, then, in the Christian world, they say repent, see it for what it is, and acknowledge it, and confess it to between yourself and your higher self. And where you need to do, correct your actions and fix things with certain people in the past or whatever, do whatever it is that is required. You will see things coming right in your life. But you need to correct your errors. I've seen a lot of men, businesses falling apart, men who were thriving, things going wonderfully well in their lives. All of a sudden, things are just starting to fall apart for them. Then all of a sudden, it's like they're literally struggling to just make ends meet. And the only way that they get to survive is by latching on to women, latching on to a relation. Even if they don't love this woman, they literally just target her because of money. They form a relationship for money just so that they can survive. And the question is, because that kind of a man will be very bitter. How does that end up happening? It ends up happening because there is karma. There is karma out here in this world. Divine justice. That's why it happens. Because you're thinking that these things are not connected. You are thinking that you think that if you leave a trail of broken hearts behind you, that means that maybe if God is really instituting or implementing divine justice, that means maybe you will struggle to find your loved one, and then you find that no, in fact, you actually end up finding a good woman. But even then, still, after having had found a good woman, you are struggling financially, and you are not connecting the dots. You are not able to see that the reason why you're actually struggling financially is because of the trail of broken hearts that you left behind. You think someone is bewitching you. You think maybe you are dealing with some kind of a generational curse that is causing you to be financially, bereft. Only to find out that no, the reason why you are struggling financially, it's actually because you have been breaking people's hearts. You have been soiling people out there in the past. So we need to raise children. We need to raise our boy children responsibly. We need to teach them responsibility. We need to help them understand how important it is to be very, very careful when it comes to handling women. Women are not objects, as this world has taught us. And I don't care where even some religions, and sometimes even the Christian religion has that thing. And I know even here as Africans, we've got our little traditions and all of those things where it's like, oh no, you can have many women, you can have polygamy, you can do all of those things. And I've never ever come across any of those situations where those things actually really work. They might work in terms of, um, surface level stuff, you know, for whatever reason. Or maybe they might come across as if they are working, but they never really work. Such things never really work. A man needs to be with one woman. A man needs to be with one woman. And it needs to be the right woman. It can't just be any woman. And for that reason, you need to be. And I understand, people will tell you, oh no, relationships, it's not about love, it's transactional, it's a business transaction, and all of those things. No, no, I don't agree. I don't agree. Because if you don't love a person and you are with them for business purposes or for transactional reasons or anything like that, that's going to be a very, very horrible experience for both of you. There has to be love. You have to have some kind of affection towards this person. So, even though there are many relationships that could have survived and lasted very long, despite the fact that people don't love each other, that does not make that relationship right. But when it comes to the failure of a relationship, we need to be clear about that. The responsibility will always be on the man. As a man, the worst thing that you can ever do is say, oh no, it's this woman's fault. It's the woman's fault. She was so toxic. That's why I left her. The minute you start talking like that, the minute that becomes your language, you know that you are treading on very, very wrong territory. You are abdicating your leadership role, your leadership responsibility. You know that you are literally like driving against oncoming traffic. That's what you are doing. The minute you start talking about, oh no, she was so toxic, I couldn't be, it's like, oh, the kind of language that you should be speaking is, you know what, I actually made an error because I jumped into this relationship with this woman without getting to know her. I made that error. I wronged this woman by not studying her. Because once again, remember, as a man, you are the one that approaches that woman. If the woman is the one that's approaching you, once again, there's something wrong there. Because the woman shouldn't be the one that's approach, because the energy of the woman is the one that is passive and receptive. There's nothing wrong with, flirting. There's nothing wrong with a woman, presenting themselves in such a way that, it indicates to the men that the men can approach. But the minute the woman then, jumps onto that role where she's the one that's now, proposing to the man and, trying to move the relationship forward, you are, literally stepping into the masculine role, which is not the role that you are supposed to be occupying. There's a reason why, there are women and there are men. There's a reason for that. So there's a feminine principle, and this feminine principle doesn't just end in the physical level or on the physical level. At a spiritual level as well, we have to honor these roles. We have to honor them. So as a man, you are the one that's approaching that woman, isn't it? You are the one that's starting that relationship. You are the one that's directing it. You are the one that's leading it. And so, with that being the case, and it doesn't matter what happens there, even if you sit there and then, the woman is controlling and manipulative and everything, it's still on you as the man. It's still on you. And so by the time you get to the point where you decide, oh, this relationship is a disaster and I don't want to do this anymore, or I'm gone, you still want to be able to say, I failed this woman because I didn't get to know her first. I didn't get to make sure that she's the right one for me first before I entered into this relationship. I failed her. I failed her. I didn't get to assess, I didn't get to see that she's actually, not okay in the head, and therefore I should have never even been with her to begin with. I didn't allow myself an opportunity to do that. And as a result, I wronged her because I came into her life and I promised her love and I promised her whatever it is that I promised her. And then I defiled her. And then now here we are. I've had to walk away. I've had to leave the whole thing. I've had to break her heart, or I've had to break both our hearts. You have to take that responsibility as a man. So the only reason why I'm sharing this message is because I am saying, I am observing as a spiritual person. I am observing and I am seeing the curses, the karma, the bad luck, the bad things that are happening in the lives of men out here in the world. And I'm aware as a spiritual person that the reason why these things are happening, it's because of the way men are handling women, the way men are handling relationships. That's the reason why all of these things are happening. When you hear a man saying things like, oh, this woman is doing this, oh, this woman that, this woman this, no, you have forgotten that you are the leader. You can't be the leader and be complaining that the business is failing because of the staff member. You are the leader. You are supposed to choose the right team, the one that is going to be able to execute and fulfill the vision and mission of the business. So that is something that is required there. Okay. um that's your responsibility as the man. So that whole thing of, oh no, she tricked me, oh no, she did that, the guys are not buying into it. Oh, she was a witch, she's a witch, she bewitched me. The guys are not buying into that. When a relationship fails, and as long as men are not taking responsibility when relationships fails, even if this woman cheats on you, even if she cheats on you, one day you wake up and you find out that this woman has another man somewhere, somehow, it's still on you. And I'm not saying that what has happened is right, or whenever it is that a woman does something wrong in a relationship, that's okay. She shouldn't be responsible or accountable for. That's not what I'm saying. Because once again, even in a business setting, in an organization, when the staff member does something wrong, there will always be consequences for that. And yet, even then, still, you as a leader, there's still a consequence on you as well, to say, what kind of staff members are you bringing into the company? What caliber of staff are you busy recruiting? You understand? But you are still the one in a leadership position in the situation, and you are still the one who is responsible for how the whole thing pans out. So if she cheats on you, and then you find out that she has been cheating on you and she has done all these horrible things against you, it is still upon you to say, you know what? I made a mistake. I have wronged this woman because I did not look into the situation in the beginning to make sure that this is the kind of woman that is actually capable of faithfulness and loyalty. I didn't check that. And if you did really, really check and make sure that that's really the kind of person that you are dealing with, then you want to say, I thought I checked, but I missed something. But I'm still taking responsibility because I'm the leader in this situation. I'm the one that failed somewhere, somehow. There has to be some kind of responsibility that you are taking as a man, because when a relationship fails, when anything fails in life, the leader is always to be blamed. When countries fail, we blame the president. When businesses fail, we blame the CEO or the business owner. When relationship fails, why are we now blaming women? Why are we blaming women? Why do we now all of a sudden want to change the standards there? When relationship fails, we blame men. You understand? When anything fails, the leader is the one that is to be held responsible. No one is looking for anyone else but the leader. Okay, so this is a societal problem, of course. That's why I'm saying it's so important for us to understand who we are raising when we are raising boy children. We have to, from get-go, teach them the importance of respecting women, females, and just generally having respect, being decent human beings. You understand? From get-go, we need to teach our children. And then where there are some personality issues, because some children are just born with some personality issues and all of those things, because of this is where generational curses really play a part. Because when children are born with personality problems, you know that that's a generational curse and it needs to be addressed. So you're either going to go to specialists, like psychologists or whatever, or there's some kind of therapy or some kind of process that this child needs to be taken through, whether it's spiritual or psychological or whatever, but there's some kind of a process that the child needs to be taken through so that they can be able to learn how to be a decent human being. And being a decent human being is not about just looking good. It's about conduct, and not from the outside, not just being polite on the surface, but from inside, energetically, having the right kind of energy, having the right kind of attitude, having respect for both yourself and others, and holding and carrying yourself with dignity. This is something that boy children need to learn from get-go. From get-go. Holding themselves and each other accountable. But nowadays, what we are seeing and what we are witnessing in society is boy children competing with regards to how many women, how many girls whose hearts they can break, how many girls they can sleep with within a year. Already, by the time a child is 20 years old, they have accumulated so much karma, it's like they are done. They are done. And then this is why the very same child, now, when the time comes and he decides, I'm going to be still now, I'm going to settle down, the woman that he settles down with is busy cheating on him. Something just goes wrong. Like, it never works out well. Hardly will you ever, unless this person somehow goes through that, awakening, where they actually allow themselves to see and learn and genuinely regret their actions, to say, oh my word, I did this, and it's not because I wanted to do it, but it's because I didn't know any better. That's all I grew up seeing, and therefore somehow I thought that was okay, that was the way to conduct myself. But I'm so regretful about how I've carried myself. Now I'm correcting my ways. And now I'm asking for forgiveness from the higher forces of life, and even maybe from the people that I have hurt. Now I'm changing my ways, and now I'm approaching the situation differently. That's how you break that curse, that karma and everything. But as long as you think, no, it's okay, you just keep doing it, and eventually you're like, okay, now I'm just gonna settle down and whatever, I don't care about how I've been conducting myself and what I've been doing this whole time. Oh no, you don't understand. You do not understand how that karma is just not going to let up on you. Okay, so society, definitely. And once again, by society, I'm still talking about men, because once again, unfortunately, what we are dealing with is a situation where men are not really playing the right kind of role models for young boys. That's why women end up having to play the role of both the mother and father. They have to now be an example of how to be a man. Meanwhile, they are women because men have just lost their way. Men have abdicated the responsibility of leadership. So there's no men, there's very, very few men to guide these young boys in terms of how is it that you are taught in this society that the way to be cool is when you have, a harem of women around you, isn't it? That's how you are cool. When you are heartless, when you are manipulative, when you are deceptive, when you know how to trick women into sleeping with you, when you know you have no intention of honoring them. This is how young boys, um, they are raised in our society. That's quite unfortunate. That's really, really unfortunate. And that's what's destroying our society. And of course, it's a systematic problem as well, because we all know, we are all aware that we are living in a narcissistic matrix. We are living in a world where chaos is the order of the day, and the negative forces of life, the ones that are narcissistic, of course, they would prefer it that we create a society that is just chaotic, that has no morals, that has no values, all these things. All of a sudden it's like, apparently to people it comes across as if morality is overvalued. Why, what are you doing with moral and ethical values? That whole thing is not important. That's the society that we are living in. Like it's morals and ethical values are optional extras in this world. How unfortunate is that? But that's the narcissistic force, and that's how it would prefer things to be. The narcissistic forces of life want us to believe that morals and ethical values are an optional extra. We don't need to have them, because this is the only way that they get to thrive. If you are a narcissistic force in this world, definitely you want things to be as chaotic as possible, because that's how you get to thrive. If everyone were to be upright and upstanding, narcissists would not have a place in society. You understand? Because they are the ones that come to steal, kill, and destroy. Do you understand that as I'm having this conversation with you, I'm not talking to narcissistic men, because there's nothing that I can say to a narcissistic man. This is the space of, going and defiling women and walking away and doing all sorts of crazy things. That's the space that a narcissistic man operates in. And that's exactly where he feels comfortable. That's why it's important for a narcissistic man that there are no morals and no ethical values in society, because that's where he thrives. That's how he thrives. No one should want, to be held accountable. No one should want to, live the right way. Everyone should just basically do whatever it is that they want to do and think that they can get away with it. That's how the narcissist wants to operate. That low vibrational frequency, that's how they want this world to be. And system, because we live in a system that operates from that perspective, this is why we are dealing with what we are dealing with here. So, of course, this is why we definitely need to, address this problem of narcissism in our society. And the only way to address it is to, raise more empathic human beings. Focus on empathy. Focus on the importance of having the right kind of moral and ethical values, as well as boundaries. Because narcissists would prefer a world where there are no boundaries, because boundaries prevent them from doing whatever it is that they want to do, which is violating you. It's a systematic thing. It's the narcissistic matrix system that is doing this. But we are grateful because it's collapsing. The matrix is collapsing. As long as we are able to see, remember, just under 15 years ago, we didn't even know that there was such a thing as narcissism. Meaning, and it doesn't mean the narcissists were not there. No, they were there as much as they are here today. They have always been here. But we were not able, we didn't know that there is such a thing as narcissism. And because we didn't know that there's such a thing as narcissism, they were able to get away with a whole lot of horrible things because we didn't know that they existed. They were able to cause so much damage within society because we did not know what they are. We thought we were all the same. We thought everyone was just like us. And they were busy just wreaking havoc in society whilst, smiling and pretending to be normal human beings. So the mere fact that over the past few years, we've been able to begin to understand that, oh, there are such things as demons in human form. And these things are here to actually destroy. Now that we know, then that means they are exposed. And as long as they are exposed, that means their power has been neutralized and significantly reduced at best, at worst, significantly reduced, at best, neutralized. I don't know. But they're not as powerful as they used to be. Because as soon as you are able to see something, then you know exactly what it is that you are grappling with. But all this time, people were literally fighting, not knowing who their real enemy is. Because the veil of narcissism was very, very thick, hiding itself nicely in plain sight. Now that we know them, we know who they are, we know how they operate. They are like a deer caught in headlights. Okay, so this is how we know that the matrix is collapsing. The minute you begin to know that there is such a thing as narcissists, then you know that the matrix is collapsing, because the only thing that is keeping the matrix intact is the narcissism that is hidden. So now that we see it for what it is, we are able to call it out. We are able to address it. We are able to combat it using spiritual tools. And we are able to disable it. And we are able to, create a better society for ourselves and the future generations. The nice thing about this whole thing is that you don't need millions of, real normal human beings or empathic human beings to combat the narcissism problem. Unlike with narcissists, they always need to be in big numbers. They need numbers. They always need numbers in order to, what's the word? Fortify themselves, validate, solidify, and just reinforce themselves, assert their power, whatever. They need numbers. They need as many people to be as chaotic as possible. But when it comes to making true significant change in the world, it's only a few people that are needed. You only need one candle to light a room, but you need a whole lot of darkness, in order for the room to be dark. You understand? So the system is collapsing. We are grateful for that. I have it on good authority that the system is definitely collapsing. Okay. And so gradually we will begin to see a better society. All right. And we will begin to see a better caliber and a better quality of men. Men that are real human beings, not narcissistic men, real human beings that could have been hurt, could have been wounded, could have been broken by the system. And then we will begin to see those type of men taking the right kind of action and playing the right kind of role models to young boys, teaching them the right way. Aggression is not the right way. You don't, just because you are the forward moving energy does not mean you need to be aggressive. Does not mean you need to be hostile to show that you are a leader, to show that you have authority. Why is it that the word is trying to run away from me? And you also don't need to be docile either. You understand, as a man. You don't need to be, a man that is broken. You don't. You can heal, you can integrate, you can become, an upstanding human being. You can, as long as you have empathy within yourself. So I'm excited. I'm very excited. I'm really looking forward to that society. I don't care what's happening in the world right now. Sometimes it looks very chaotic just before order takes charge. So it is what it is, but definitely I do trust that the invisible forces of life are on our side, on the side of light, on the side of goodness, on the side of love. And they are definitely more, bigger and more powerful than the negative forces of life. The devil is a created being, whatever you want to call it, Satan or whatever, the narcissist, because we've never seen Satan and his ugly little horns, but we've seen narcissists. We've seen them. They walk this flesh on 2 feet, 2 legs, all right? And that's the devil. So they are created beings. So whoever it is that has created all of us is bigger and greater than the human beings that are trying to assert their authority over other human beings, and human beings that are trying to, assume the position of God in the lives of humanity. This is also a spiritual problem, of course. It is a spiritual problem. And it's okay to address it with spiritual tools as well, which is why we are having these conversations, and which is why everyone is embarking on some spiritual journey to heal whatever it is that needs to be healed from a spiritual perspective. You understand, to integrate themselves so that they can become the right kind of people that create healthy relationships. Gone are those days where relationships are now all about, oh, I'm just sticking it out just so that I can say we've been together for 50 years and all of that. But we are now in that phase of life where relationships, when you say we've been together for 50 years, you will boldly say we've been together for 50 years because we love each other, and we've loved each other all these 50 years. Yes, there have been a few challenges here and there, but definitely the love has been there and it's still there. You understand? So that's where we are now. Now, finally, what I want to say in closing is that this is not to blame men or to even vilify them in the context of relationships or anything like that. And I hope the message was clear. We are not here to see each other as enemies or anything like that. We are here to see things for what they are. That's what I like. I want us to be very clear. I don't want us to be, the kind of human beings that are moving from that angle where I don't know, we are moving according to emotions or moving according to whatever clouded and distorted perceptions that we are carrying within ourselves. But I would rather we are the kind of human beings that move in accordance with reality, that move in alignment with reality, the kind of human beings that will say, okay, this is what is happening. This is the situation. And as long as you are not clear about, certain fundamental realities in your life, you'll always be at odds with life. You understand? And the first, one of the most important fundamental realities that you need to be in touch with in life as a man is the fact that you are a born leader. That's the first thing that you need to be taught as a man, that you are a born leader. Okay. And that's a big, big responsibility that is on your shoulders. Huge responsibility. If you are a man, that means you are responsible for people's lives. Okay. In the same way that women are responsible for carrying life, isn't it? Women are responsible for raising children. You as a man, you are responsible for people's lives. You are responsible for protecting people in your life. The women and children in your life, you are responsible for that. You are responsible for making sure that you are leading them in the right direction. You are responsible for making sure that you are the right kind of role model for the people in your life. That's a huge responsibility. And that's why it's important to train a child in this way from get go. Don't wait until it's late, until the system has already perverted the child and destroyed them and done all sorts of horrible things to the child. But you do this once the child, but in Setswana they say, "Lori lo ojwa lo sa le metsi." You train up a child in the way that they should go whilst they are still young. You bend the branch of a plant whilst it's still wet, so that even when it dries up, it can hold on to the form that you have given it whilst it was still wet. You train up a boy child whilst they are still young, helping them understand that this is it's this whole thing of you are a leader does not mean that you get to do whatever it is that you want and everyone else is stupid and girls are just objects, women are objects, and all sorts of things. That's not what this is about. That's you misinterpreting, misconceiving, misunderstanding, and miscarrying your role and your responsibility as a leader. This is something that is not given to you by human beings, it's given to you by God. It's given to you by the invisible forces of life. So, this is a heavy, heavy responsibility. So, don't assume that just because you, as a man, you don't carry life in your body, that doesn't mean, don't assume that that means then that, oh, you are scot free, you don't have the kind of responsibilities, you don't have to worry, you don't have to stress like women have to stress. And no, there are other things that you are carrying on your shoulders as well. And those things, unfortunately, they are invisible. Unlike with women, every month the woman is reminded that you are a woman and you have responsibilities that pertain to the fact that you are a woman. Every month the woman is reminded of that. And then if it's not every month, then of course, even with regards to the carrying of life and the raising of children, the woman is reminded constantly about their responsibility as the feminine principle. And even how society deals with a woman, the woman is always reminded about her role, as the divine feminine. But for you as a man, majority of the time, your responsibilities, they are invisible. You don't get to see them because they don't knock on your door every month, you know? And because they don't knock on your door like that, then somehow you assume that just because you don't see them with your naked eyes, just because you don't touch them, just because you don't feel them in your body, that means they are not there. Those responsibilities, do not be mistaken. They are there. Those responsibilities are still there. You are still a leader. And the invisible forces are watching you and are looking at you. And even when they dish out consequences for the errors that you are making, it's still going to be very invisible. You are still not going to be able to connect the dots. But ultimately, you do have that responsibilities that you are carrying. You are carrying massive responsibilities. The invisible forces of life are watching you as a man. What is happening to your family? What is happening to your relationship? What is happening to your family? What is happening to your community in your presence? What is happening? One of the things that I've observed with regards to the male species is how that men, they do like together with each other, unlike with women. You know, women, there's a whole lot of issues with women. There's a whole lot of issues with women. So very few women are able to come together. And majority of the time, what I've seen, but I've noticed that even with men, the same thing happens. Like majority of the time, women who like to gather together quite a lot, usually it's for toxic reasons. It's for gossip. It's for, a whole lot of superficial things. It's never really something that is very, elevating and something that is evolved. And then what I've also noted, unless if maybe, these are people that are, I don't know, maybe doing church things or whatever, but generally women that like together, they will often be meeting for just very not that great reasons. Okay. But I've seen that men also, they more than anything else, because women who come together are very few, but men generally, they like together, they like to hang out with each other, and they like to hang out in groups also. And the sad part is that instead of building each other in these groups the right way, they build each other the wrong way. They it's almost as if they reinforce each other's toxicity. You understand? They give each other some kind of, it's almost as if they are backing each other up in their toxicity. And that's where, we ruin our society, because men really should be coming together to do what is right, to build each other up, to correct each other, to hold each other accountable, to challenge each other to do the right thing. So, but I understand that systematically, this world that we are living in, has also been designed so that every little corner of the world, there's some narcissist somewhere, whether it's a man or a woman. There's always one or two or three narcissists that are busy steering the ship in a different direction. So we need bold and courageous men, and many of them are springing up who will say, nope, we are not going to participate in this type of toxicity. We are going to do the right thing. We are going to honor the women in our lives. We are going to honor ourselves as well. And we are also going to honor the children that we are bringing into this world by living the right type of lives, by respecting their mothers as well. And so, as I said, this is not to attack men or anything like that, but this is just to remind you, the men, to say, you are the leader, and own it, own it. And in the same way that it's nice to own the fact that you are a leader, it's nice when a relationship is succeeding, or when things are succeeding and you are being acknowledged as a leader. It's wonderful, it's nice and warm and fuzzy, isn't it? In the same way that you are able to accept, those accolades of, success in whatever relationship that you might be in, accept also when a relationship fails, that it's your responsibility. It's on you, it's on your head, it's on your shoulders. Accept that, and not so that you can feel bad or hate yourself, but in the same way that, any good business person would say, okay, fine, let me do self-reflection, self-introspection. Where did I go wrong? How did I mess this up? And say, okay, my people, I failed you. I said we're going to start a business here. I said we're going to take this thing in this direction, but I failed. I failed to deliver. I failed to lead us to the desired end. The objective, the goal that we had set out in the beginning, I failed to take us there. And I'm sorry. I get it. I understand that you guys were crazy. You guys were cheaters. You guys were unfaithful. You guys were stealing money. You guys were doing all this horrible. I get it. But I am sorry for actually bringing you into this situation without making sure that you had the right type of credentials to be able to fulfill the roles that I had placed you in. I'm a leader. I'm taking responsibility for that. And yeah, alone, I'm self-reflecting. How did I miss it? How did I bring these people on board, without making sure that they are the right people? Where did I miss it? How can I correct this? How can I do something differently next time? I'm a leader. I take full responsibility for the failure of my relationships. I take full responsibility as a leader. I accept that the relationships that I have had that have failed, I'm responsible for it. That's that. It's so important. If there are any wounds, any traumas from childhood, I've heard of stories where, young men have been taken advantage of by older women. I've heard those kind of stories. So I understand that some men could say, ever since that trauma, I haven't been able to. You want to heal all of that. You want to be able to heal all the whatever it is that could have happened to you that placed you in a precarious position as a man. You want to heal from that. And yet, even then, still, as you are healing from that, you still want to acknowledge the role that you have played, to say, ever since that has happened, this is what I have been doing, which is wrong. This is how I have still been wronging the feminine gender as a result of the traumas that I have experienced in my life or in my childhood or in my past. You understand? I understand that there's this whole situation of Ben 10 that is trending nowadays. A whole lot of very old women that are busy, having relationships with young men in exchange for, you get to drive my car, I get to take you to the casino, I get to take you to all these fancy places, I get to give you money. But I'm this old woman that is just taking advantage of you as a child, as a young man. That's something that seems to be trending here, and it's very toxic. And really, if you are a man that have found themselves having had experienced that at some point in your life, that's also something that you want to heal from, because that's also something that would have instilled certain things in your mind and in your psyche that should not be there in the psyche of a man. Because this elderly woman is someone that you are supposed to see as a mother. This is someone that you are supposed to uphold and respect in the same way that you uphold and respect your mother. So now, this relationship that you have had with this woman has defiled your perspective of the elderly women. So that's something that you need to heal from. And once again, in a perfect society, you would have been, even before you got to that age where you are 22 or whatever, or 26, however old that you are, then you find yourself in a situation where you are a Ben 10 to an older lady. Before you could have gotten that, in a perfect society, you would have still been prepared for such kind of things, to say, my child, my boy, you do not look ever, you do not ever look at a woman who's older than you in a particular light. And if ever they present themselves in that way to you, rebuke that devil like nobody's business. And no situation in the world, no level of desperation should put you in a position where you are now a Ben 10 to an older lady. This whole thing of marriages of convenience, where all these African men are getting married to all these, a 20-year-old African man will be getting married to a 70-something-year-old American woman. And I mean, this woman, you can see she's literally knocking on the grave. And then she's getting married to a 22-year-old boy or things like that. And those are the things that young men should be trying to say. There should be no desperation in you to put you in a position where you end up doing something like that. You should, as a leader, as a man, know that if you are in a situation where you are desperate financially, you are in some kind of financial trouble or whatever, you have to rely on the invisible forces of life to guide you, to show you solutions for your problem, solutions that do not include you compromising yourself like that, and also you having to allow this person to degrade and compromise themselves in this, not with you, not with you. You understand? So these are the things that young men need to learn. We need, like, in a perfect world, and I'm calling it a perfect world because that's how just broken this world is, that now we see such kind of things that are very basic. We see them as things that are part of, or things that pertain to the perfect world, quote unquote perfect. But really, a man who's been raised the right way, they want to to keep and maintain their energy in a pristine way. And I'm not saying you're going to be perfect 100% altogether and everything and all of that, but at least certain basic things, you will have them in place. You will have those basic things, and you are not going to be busy, just doing things that are just out of order, and you'll be okay with them. Even that elderly lady, the guys are holding you accountable for your conduct with her, because you are still the man. You are still the leader. Your responsibility in that situation is not to go there. As a leader, you need to know where is it that you should go and where is it that you shouldn't be going. You need to know, because the guides are going to be holding you accountable. All right, so let's close it. Thank you so much for spending time with me on this transmission. I knew I was going to go for more than an hour, even though I said I was going to go for an hour, but it's been great. So until next time, goodbye.